Tonight, 18 new COVID cases and warnings of more to come. As the state's clusters grow, the Premier fires up over the failing vaccination rollout. Concern growing at the number of cases involving children as authorities begin an urgent rethink on how to keep the young protected. With city streets, cafes and restaurants all but empty, owners plead for the government's Dine and Discover vouchers to be extended to takeaway. Police hunting a criminal gang accused of a string of break-ins, including at the home of a grieving family. The text message, which has brought a dramatic twist to the Ben Roberts-Smith defamation trial. And the Blues making plans for a new dynasty of domination after keeping Queensland scoreless at Suncorp.
This is 10 News First Sydney with Sandra Sully.
Good evening. First tonight, Premier Gladys Berejiklian has lashed out at the federal government's vaccine rollout as New South Wales faces multiple growing clusters from the Bondi outbreak. There are now 130 cases across the state, 18 new cases today, including 3 school children. Health officials say there is clear evidence the Delta variant is now infecting kids in a way we've not seen before.
South Coogee Public School in lockdown. Every student from every year level told to isolate for 14 days. 4 students here have now tested positive. Just 2 kilometres away, another child at the Emmanuel School in Randwick is positive too. The Chief Health Officer says when it comes to kids, the Delta variant is behaving differently, and it may mean tightening health rules around schools.
It certainly is a concern, the increased transmissibility and the observation around children.
And we also have to be prepared for the numbers to go up considerably because as experience shows with this strain, we are seeing almost 100% of transmission within households.
There are now 320 exposure sites, more than 3,000 close contacts in isolation. Despite the lockdown, they warn cases aren't likely to fall for days.
But the cases we have now reflect exposures that occurred 5 days ago.
Today, one of the first transmission sites, the Bell Cafe, underwent a deep clean. The majority of exposure locations are still clustered around the Bondi area, but now they stretch throughout the inner city and right out to Narellan in the southwest and Rouse Hill in the northwest.
These contagious variants are going to be the norm in the future. It is scary. It's scary having to juggle all the balls, but what we need to do is make sure that we have the right balance of policies and settings.
But there's now also real-world data emerging from our super spreader events. The vaccines are working against the Delta strain. Of the 30-odd people at the party in West Hoxton, 24 were unvaccinated. They've all caught the virus. The ones who have escaped so far were all fully vaccinated health workers and a partly vaccinated aged care worker.
Short message is get vaccinated.
But access to the vaccine is an ongoing problem. From July, the number of Pfizer doses coming to New South Wales will lift to 120,000 a week. But the Premier today was expressing her clear frustration. The federal government's planning isn't keeping pace.
We don't have enough GPs signed up, and that has to happen across the nation. Well, you have to plan for the future. You have to plan for the weeks and months ahead. And I'm getting frustrated that people aren't doing that at other levels.
The AMA says GPs who've signed up to deliver the Pfizer vaccine still haven't been told when they'll get them.
The logistics isn't a good enough excuse anymore. We need to get as much vaccine out to as many places as we can.
And if the race wasn't on before, it should be now.
Well, Ursula Hager joins me now at the desk. And Ursula, we've seen more examples of people breaching the rules.
Yes, Sandra. Well, police have been out and about enforcing the lockdown restrictions. So far, they've handed out 44 infringement notices, including to people caught not wearing masks. One incident singled out 2 men were handed $1,000 on-the-spot fines after they had to be rescued from the Royal National Park. The pair were apparently found naked, and the story is that they were sunbathing nude at a nearby beach and had run into the bush after being startled by a deer. Certainly a story that raises more questions than answers. Another man was also issued a $1,000 on-the-spot fine after interrupting today's health news conference and approaching the police commissioner while yelling. Police have pointed out interrupting a news conference is not one of the reasons you are currently allowed out to leave your home.
Indeed. All right, Ursula, thank you. The sudden lockdown has been like another hammer blow to the state's businesses, with estimates of $2 billion worth of lost economic activity. The government says details of a new support package will be unveiled soon. The restaurant and catering sector believes some immediate relief could be delivered through the popular Dine and Discover program.
Monday morning, but there was certainly no peak to this peak hour. Once again, the B is missing from CBD.
And we're down 80% today.
Of 30 staff at his 3 Charlie's and Frank's venues, George Prodromo says only 4 are working. JobKeeper had helped him keep them on, but that finished in March.
There's definitely something the government can do, and that little bit of help goes a long way in terms of, retaining people's jobs.
The Restaurant and Catering Association says immediate cash injections are needed, suggesting the government use Dine and Discover.
So we would love to see the Treasurer use that mechanism to get money directly into businesses without having to necessarily fill out a long grant application.
The $500 million voucher program was designed to entice people into venues. Labor leader Chris Minns believes it could now be used to keep them at home.
One idea we're suggesting is extending the Dine and Discover program for online deliveries, $25 for everybody in the Sydney area and the regions.
The government can roll out support quickly. A review of last year's $750 million Small Business Support Fund found Treasury met urgent timeframes to design the grants, and Service New South Wales made timely payments. But demand was also less than anticipated, resulting in around $120 million remaining unspent, money that may be directed into new support.
I'm hoping to be able to announce it either tomorrow or the day after in terms of financial assistance.
As for changes to Dine and Discover,
we don't want people going up and picking up food. We prefer people to have a contactless system.
The new lockdown will impact the state budget unveiled last Tuesday. It was modelled on no more lockdowns, something the Treasurer conceded was far from certain.
This pandemic is not over. It's an evolving situation.
Lachlan Kennedy for 10 News First.
Customers will be restricted to buying 2 packs of toilet paper at Woolworths supermarkets, all to help curb panic buying across the state. The stripping of shelves has once again been seen in shopping aisles following the announcement of the 2-week lockdown. The vaccine rollout has now hit more than 7.3 million, more than 2 million of those in New South Wales. But other state leaders today joined our Premier in criticising the federal government's COVID response. All agree we are vaccinating the population too slowly and hotel quarantine simply doesn't work.
Masking up now to steer away from another snap lockdown.
We've got to act quickly and we've got to act fast.
The Queensland Premier means that, announcing masks will be mandatory for much of the state's southeast from 1 a.m. tomorrow, but that
I want you to start doing it now.
The state's recorded 2 more community cases of COVID-19, one linked to the Portuguese restaurant cluster and another in a female miner on the Sunshine Coast, testing positive to the troubling Delta strain.
So we've got enormous risks throughout our state, but I'm very confident with all our strategies.
That's as cases bubble along elsewhere in the country, with a new case in the Northern Territory now extending its lockdown until Friday. WA has also recorded another case as it reintroduces restrictions around Perth, and South Australia is also enforcing rules such as mask use. It's again scrapping travel plans now for the 3rd school holidays in a row, leaving the country's struggling tourism industry in line to lose another $6 billion.
What we need is governments to get together and sort out this issue of borders and vaccination, because that's what will save the industry.
An issue the Victorian Premier, now back at work, has also jumped on.
But no one can be happy that we have so few people vaccinated.
Amid calls for those who are eligible to
go and get your vaccine.
Alice Hogg for 10 News First.
And an emergency meeting of the National Cabinet is about to get underway. Chloe Bouris joins me from Canberra. Chloe, it looks like the PM will face some tough questions from the other premiers.
Yeah, well, the premiers were very public about their frustrations today, so you can only imagine that would continue behind closed doors. The crisis talks will start in about half an hour, and first the leaders will get a briefing on the latest outbreaks, variants and vaccine supplies. Then there'll be a discussion on whether there should be a ban on quarantining low-risk domestic travellers next door to high-risk international travellers. That was what happened with the gold mine worker. They'll also discuss mandatory vaccinations for aged care workers and testing on day 16. They'll also look at the testing and vaccinating of people who work in the quarantine system. These are all measures that the federal opposition say should have been introduced a long time ago. The meeting will go for about an hour and a half. Then we are expecting a news conference with the Prime Minister.
All right, Chloe, thank you. Let's hope we make some more headway. Police have revealed new clues into the man they claim has burgled multiple Sydney homes, including that of a grieving family. The Abdullahs were forced to confront the deaths of 3 of their children in last year's Oatlands crash tragedy. Now they're struggling to cope with another cruel loss, this time at the hands of thieves.
The Abdullahs should never have had to grieve the loss of their 3 little angels, let alone be robbed of precious keepsakes.
These items are sentimental to us, and with every item we have memories with our kids.
Anthony, Sienna and Angelina were killed by a drunk, drugged and speeding driver while walking home from getting ice cream. Police say this man burgled the family's Sydney home, stealing their dead children's mobile phone and jewellery.
We don't believe they were deliberately targeted. It just happened to be an opportunity that the offenders took advantage of. It's just a low-life act.
But not an isolated one. The same crook went on to try to steal a ute and to burgle this home. Nicole Gupta and her family were sleeping when he tiptoed his way inside.
I woke up with one of the lights on in the house and called out thinking it was one of my kids. Saw a shadow move.
This time he stole handbags and jewellery. New security images also showed the man using Nicole's elderly mother's credit card, draining her account of $1,000.
So just that feeling of violation in your own home, you should be able to be at peace.
Police have already charged 7 people they say were a part of the same crime syndicate. They're now urging anyone else allegedly involved to hand themselves in.
You will be caught, you will be arrested and put before the courts. It's only a matter of time before we knock on your door.
Michael Hammond for 10 News First.
Stunning, exceptional, frightening. Just some of the words that are being used to describe the series-winning performance by New South Wales in last night's State of Origin. Matt Burke joins me now. Matt, stop grinning, please. Now, to be honest, the Blues, well, they were almost faultless.
That's exactly right, Sandra. Good evening. They're talking about a new era of Blues domination, especially when they held the Maroons to 0 on their home turf. And when you put them together, the figures for the 2 games are staggering. Game 1, the Blues racking up 50 points to 6. Then last night, adding another 26, while Queensland remains stuck on just 1 converted try so far in the series.